What is Anatar's plan? I've heard the name going around Evil Sauron Barbie, so I might start referring to him as that. I really don't like the dynamic and how they're portraying Celebrimbor here. He's so easily manipulated. This isn't interesting. When it comes to the forging of the rings, it's so odd how the rings are portrayed. Mostly like the elven rings, which they can't really seem to land on if they're good or bad, if they're without Sauron's influence or not. Because it seems to portray them when it wants to, when the plot, I guess, needs it to create tension artificially, is to portray the rings as being corrupted by Sauron, which is, of course, a deviation. But also, the rings themselves just kind of do whatever the plot needs it to, like Deus Ex Machina. So Galadriel's ring, Nenya, like healed somebody, and it also gives her, she can see into the future, she has visions, but it also is portrayed as like there's some sinister music. I think with Gilgalad's ring had some like sinisterness to it as to him being connected to the ring, and he doesn't want to take it off. And then the rings now with the Dwarven rings, they're all already having this tie. Like, okay, so with Durin here, King Durin, he hears voices, disembodied voices, and it's very much like we've seen in other scenes in other films of the One Ring and its effects to now these rings. They're already having this deep impact on the dwarves and on Durin, King Durin especially. He's getting these sinister vibes, sinister notions. We get this malevolent sort of feeling. He can't be without the ring for very long without him kind of getting irritated and frustrated. So they're already doing that. And they play the disembodied voices, the chatter, he's hearing voices. With the rings themselves, Prince Durin, I think, is the one who reveals, like, there's something going on with these rings. They're not to be trusted. And then it gets back to Celebrimbor, and he's like, what have we done? What's wrong? Did you do something to the rings to alter them? To Anatar? He says it like, well, because you sent a letter to Gilgalad saying that you're shutting down the forge. That's why they're corrupted. Basically, there's something wrong with it. And it's your fault, is what he basically alluded to Celebrimbor. And then, as a result of that storyline, then they start talking about rings for men to redeem the seven, which makes no sense to me. and just like talking about this, it's really hard to make this coherent because it doesn't come across as very coherent when I'm watching it. So me just trying to like recall what happens, it just sounds so silly. They just make things happen because plot needs to happen, and whatever needs to happen with the rings, we'll just do that so we can move on to the next thing, so that we can move on to the rings for men being made. And there's just a lot of little things that I feel could be cut out. There's a lot of filler, and again, it's just what keeps this show feeling so long and a slog to get through. And especially with the dwarves, we have all these conversations with Prince Durin and Disa that don't really seem meaningful. In one of them, and again, this speaks to the references, we see Disa buying a ball in a market, like a crystal ball or something, and she drops it and it goes down this little cavern or something that's never been explored before. And what does she hear? She stirs the Balrog, is what we're supposed to think about that moment. Like, why do you need to put that in here? Why is that necessary? It lasts for a good long while, that scene. And I don't think it has any meaningful impact later. I think Durin mentions it, like something's going on, and he connects it to the rings. And that's just one other thing that he notices is wrong. They can't just not have the Balrog in here. We have to have all the things. There's this whole sequence where now they've started to craft the rings for men. And Anatar is just going about it by himself. He said, fine, I'll do it without Celebrimbor's help. I'll do it. You don't have to be involved. So they start, he's working with the smiths, and something starts to go wrong, and there's just things that are moving around. For some reason, there is a huge anvil just hanging above where people are working. So all these hijinks are going on, apparently by an invisible force. And yeah, one of the things was this huge anvil gets let loose, the rope gets undone and crashes down. And I'm just thinking, why was that there? Where people are working and could get hurt. Okay, so it turns out to be this character. It was, can't remember her name. I don't know. Galadriel 2.0. She I have that problem a lot with this show. I can't remember characters' names that I don't care about, and I barely care about the ones that I know that are legacy characters. It's the only reason I know. He's got substitute Galadriel now. Yeah, and that's the thing too. So she was the one with the ring on and it turned her invisible, which apparently is a storyline from the Lord of the Rings online game. She's hashing it out with Anatar afterwards. She described what she saw when she was in the unseen realm, this other realm. She's describing like horrible things, like menacing things, like fire and malice, and this figure that's shrouded in fire, and it's a frightening experience for her what she saw in that realm. And Anatar just says, oh well, Celebrimbor's going through some stuff lately, so he's kind of struggling. And I guess he's alluding to the fact that it's Celebrimbor's deception again because he lied to Gil-galad about shutting down the forge. He's alluding to that. That was the reason. And she just eats that up. Before that, he brushes her hair from her face or whatever and says, oh, in the light, you look just like her. She's like who? Like Lady Galadriel, of course. So he just compliments her, and I guess that eased all of her suspicions and trauma from that event. Like, oh, okay, well, God, the way they portray all of the female characters in this show, it's so insulting, to be honest. So she just, like with everyone else, with Anatar, just simple flattery eases all questions and suspicion. So everyone around him is dumb and ignorant, and simple flattery works. I mean, she has such a significant traumatic event and experience. And I don't think that would have been enough to throw suspicion on Celebrimbor, but, just add the compliment that you look just like Galadriel and all concerns are allayed. That's it. That's all it took. Like, oh, okay then. Moving on. Yeah, the master deceiver. This whole thing, I don't even know what we're doing at this point. Everything is wrong. This is a rumor that's been going around. I don't know if it's true or not. It wouldn't surprise me though. So the rumor is that the showrunners, how they decided to do this adaptation with the Rings of Power is just follow the ring poem from the Lord of the Rings and use that as the order for how they were made. The famous poem, the ring poem, starts with 3 rings for the elven kings under the sky, 7 for the dwarf lords in their halls of stone, 9 for mortal men doomed to die, and then 1 for the dark lord on his dark throne in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. So people are thinking that that's what they just followed for adapting this story instead of how this actually occurred. So the 3 rings for the elven kings were not made first. But because they're first in the poem, the rumor is that that's what they decided to do. Whether it's intentional or not, I don't know. That's just so strange to me. They should have made the dwarves and man's rings first, the elven rings in secret, then the master ring, and the 3 rings have no evil. Yes, it's so simple. I don't understand why they were allowed to make such drastic deviations from what's written. I honestly don't know why the Tolkien estate is fine with, like, this is what's preferred. If they're not going to sell the rights to Tolkien's Second Age stories, they're completely fine with someone just making up everything. And not only that, I mean, just taking such drastic creative liberties. It's just so insane to me that this is preferred. That this is what's preferred in regards to how studios are treating Tolkien's works. So that's the rumor, that they just took the poem and then went from there and didn't care about how the actual order of events went. And this just speaks to this entire show because they've not only condensed thousands of years of history, they've also mishmashed stuff. Events are out of order. And we have characters now that are alive that shouldn't be at this point in time with the rings being made and all this going on. Everything is out of order and I don't know what's in store next because I don't even know what part that they're at now. I mean, people think they're going to do the Siege of Eregion, but I don't know. It's hard to tell that when it's so far from the source material.